11 years old. I'm the founder of 10xforthekids.com, and if you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video with as many people as you can. And if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, kindly do it so that you don't miss any of my videos. So without any delay, let's get started. And today we are gonna learn about linked list in Java. So we are back with a Java topic, and in Java we are gonna learn about linked list, right? So let's just jump into it. So without any delay, let's get started. Damn. So basically, linked list class. So a linked list is also created, like an array list does. If you don't know about array list, do check out my array list video. But a linked list also, what we say, works. It's like it is almost identical to the array list, and it has all the methods of the array list, right? It has all the methods of array list, but it is quite different. It is a bit different from array list, and the usage of linked list is also a bit different, right? Or else it is all like kind of the same. If you don't know about array list, do check out my array list video, right? So it is linked list is also made with a like class, right? So you create an object of the class linked list, right? So there's a class named linked list in a java.util package, like the array list, and you can create a linked list using that class, right? So let's just jump into the code. So here we have some sample code. Over here we have import java.util.linked list. So we are importing a linked list class. It's quite difficult to pronounce linked list, linked, right? So that's quite a tongue twister thingy, right? So we have imported a linked list class, right? And now in we have a main class and a main method, right, in which we are creating an object of the linked list, and we are creating it like we created of our array list, right? So over here we give array list, then the type of which what data type should the elements be, right? So we learned in the array list video that those elements are objects, right? They are not integers, not strings, but they are objects of like whatever the wrapper class you specify. So the element, if you give string type over here, the element there is object of string. If you give integer over here, the integer wrapper class, then its elements will be an object of that integer class, right? So over here we have a linked list, and first we need to give this less than sign, then we need to give the data type of which data type objects should be made, and which data types objects should be the items of, right? And what items, what data type objects should be the item, right? Items data type, right? um, Whatever specific data type is, I don't know why I'm not able to explain, but whatever data type you specify it, here it says that this data type's object should be the uh, values in your linked list, right? Then you give the greater than sign to close it, and then you give your object name, and then you give the new keyword, and then you give the class name again, then you start open the less than sign, and then you give uh, of what type of what objects, what data type objects, which wrapper class or data types objects should be there in as values in the linked list, and then you just give parentheses, you call it, right? Then you are like I told you that there and all the array list methods are there in linked list, right? So array list is a very important concept to learn before doing linked list, right? And over here we are just adding 4 items using the add method, as we learned in the array list video, right? And then we are just printing out cars. So what we'll get a list. So it will be in square brackets with these 4 items, right? So it is it is almost identical to array list, right? but it works quite different. So over here we have add, right? We are adding all these four items, and then they are over here in this list, right? In square brackets, all we can see all our items, right? Right. Now we'll just see. Okay, so what is the difference between array list and linked list? So there's a difference in working, how the array list and linked list work. There's a difference in how they both work. So let's see how the array list works. The array list class has a regular array inside it. When an element is added, it is placed into the array. So whenever you add an element, it is placed into that array. If the array is not big enough, so basically there's a default size of an array, right? When you have an array list, it has a default size of the array in which all the items are saved. And if that array is not big enough, meaning that if the default size that is defined for the array is not big enough, right? So the default size that you define is not big enough, right? It is not big enough to have one more element. A new larger array is created to replace the old one, and the old one is removed. So a new larger array of those of or take is created with all those elements that were there and the new element, right? And it replaces the old one, and the old one is removed. Whereas how the linked list works, the linked list stores its items in containers. So its items are stored in containers, right? And that container is divided into two parts. One part of it is a link, and the other part of it is the value, right? So the link, what the link does, it is connected to the previous element, and basically the link is connect. We'll just see, right? So the linked list stores its items in containers. The list has a link to the first container, and each container has a link to the next container in the list. To add an element to the list, the element is placed into a new container, and that container is linked to one of the other containers in the list, right? So now we'll just see it using this diagram. So over here we have a start node, right? In which we have this is the container. This whole thing is the container, right? So this whole thing is the container. And then over here we have the value. This container is divided into two parts. This is the link, this orange part is the link, and this is the value. So in those two parts, one is the value and one is the link. This is the link to the next item. So next item is also in a container, right? It has a value and then a link, right? So this value is the value. Whenever we access the item, we'll get this value, and the link is connected to the next item, and that link is also connected to the previous item. So using that link, you can go to the previous item, or you can go to the next item, right? This is called circular linked list in Java, right? This a linked list is circular linked list in Java, right? Similar with this. This is a container, here's our value, and here's our link, right? So this link is connected to the next value, that is the end node, and it is also connected to the previous node, that is this container, right? So they are saved in all the containers are saved in different memory locations, spreaded memory locations. And their link connection is kind of a pointer. Their link part is kind of a pointer to the next item's memory location, and the link part is also kind of a pointer to the previous one's memory location also, right? So I think you understood it, right? So when to use an array list for storing and accessing data, right? So you should use an array list for storing and when you want to access data, and a linked list to manipulate data. So we'll just see why should we follow these rules, right? So search operation is faster in array list because it is random access, meaning that you can access an element directly from it using an index. So what it is saying, that search operation is faster in an array list, meaning that accessing data from an array list is faster because it is random access, meaning that you can access any an element from it uh, directly from the array list using an index. So you can access any element directly using its index, right? So you can access it directly and you will get it directly, right? So to access an element from an array list, you only need one operation. You only need one operation to access an element from your array list. Search operation is slower in linked list, so it is quite slower in linked list than compared to array list, because it is not random access. It is not random access, meaning that you cannot access an element directly from it. So you cannot access an element directly from it. For example, when you access the 10th element from it, for example, you want to access the 10th element of the linked list, right? It will first go to the first element, then to the second, because it is connected with links. All the elements are connected with links, right? All the containers, or you can say elements of the linked list, are connected with links. So you always have to start with the first one, then you have to, through that first one you have to find the second one, through that second one you have to find the third one, through the third one you have to find the fourth one, and so on, till you get what you want, right? So this is much more slower than just directly accessing the element and bring it to you. And right, so over here more operations are needed, and that's why it is slower. Over here we need a lot of operations going one by one to that element. So over here we need 10 operations, right? Because first we are going to the first element, then to the second, then to the third, then to the fourth. Over here we are we need 10 operations, right? We need to perform uh, more operations than before. So obviously this is a faster way where we need to perform less operations, right? Now we'll come on manipulation. Manipulation is slower in an array list. It is slower because if you try to add an element in it, so if you try to add an element in the array list and the default size is not big enough, so if the default size of the array list is not big enough, then it has to create a new larger array and remove the old one, and that needs n number of operations, where n is the number of elements that are there in the array, right? So this is why manipulating data is slower in an array list, because like if you want to add an element in it, the default size is not big enough, so the default size of the array that is there is not big enough, then it has to create a new larger array and remove the old one, right? So like it is a lot of stuff happening, and that needs n number of operations, right? So where n is the number of elements that are there in the array, so those are lots of operations. If you have like 100 elements in your array, there will be 100 operations, right? And that will take quite a lot of time, right? Manipulation is faster in a linked list, right? Manipulation is faster in a linked list because when you add an element in it, then you only need to connect it with a link to the other elements, and that only takes one operation. So manipulation is much more faster in a linked list, because when you add an element, this only you only need to do one thing: connect uh, connect uh, connect that item to other items, like, right? Like you just need to connect it with a link to the other items that are there in the linked list, right? And that only takes one operation. So this is much more faster, right? Who is it? Can you just please keep quiet? Sorry. It was my brother. Okay. So over here, in our linked list, we have certain extra methods also that are not there with array list, and that quickens our stuff, right? Whatever we want to do, that quickens our stuff, right? Our coding, right? So first we'll see add first method. There's an add first method. So over here we have a linked list. We are importing a linked list class. Then in our main class we have a main method in which we are creating an object of the linked list. We are adding three items, right? And we are using add first to add the item to the beginning. So we are using the add first item, right, to add this value. So we need to pass it a value, and that value will be added to the start of the linked list. And basically the first element of a linked list is called a head. So basically it will be set to the head, right? This Mazda will be now the head, the first element, because in a linked list is a head. So the first element in the linked list is called the head, and the last element in the linked list is called the tail, right? So when you add it in the start, it will be like called the head, because the first element is always called the head. Similarly, we have an add last method. So the sound only says of it, it adds your item to the end of your linked list, right? So it adds the item to the end of the linked list, right? And it will be called the tail, because the last item in a linked list is called its tail, right? So in the diagram also, I think it no, it used start node and end node, but mostly people call it head and tail, right? So if we just use add last, it will add it in the end of our linked list, right? It will add this value in the end of a linked list, right? So that last value is also called the tail. And then we have remove first. Like add first, we also have remove first. That basically what it does, it removes the first item. So we have four items in a linked list, right? And then we are using the remove first method on the cars object where we had the four items, and this will remove the first item from the linked list, right? And then if we print it, we'll only get BMW, Ford, and Mazda, because the Volvo value is removed because it was the first value, right? So we are only getting BMW, Ford, and Mazda, right? Similarly, we have last thing, remove last, right? So we also have a remove like last, like remove first, right? And in this we have four items, and it will remove the remove last method. When we call it on a cars object, it will remove the last value, right? So over here we are calling remove last on the cars object, and now if we run this, we'll only get Volvo, BMW, and Ford, because Mazda is removed using the remove last method, right? So then we have our get first method. That what it does, it basically brings the first item of our linked list. So over here we are importing linked list. We have a linked list object. We are adding four items, and then what we are doing, we are doing cars.get first, and then we are enclosing it in system.out.println, right? So what this get first method does, it returns the value of the first element, right? So it returns the value of the first container, right? And we are then printing it over here, right? So system.out.println, and we are doing it like that, right? So it returns us the value, and then we are printing it. So it will bring Volvo, because it is bringing the first value, and then that first value we are printing it, right? Similar to this, we have get last, that brings the last item of our linked list, right? So over here we have a linked list, we have a car object, we have four items, and then this also returns us a value, right? This also returns the value of and that value is the last items value in our linked list, right? So it returns us the value of the last item in our linked list, and then we are printing it over here, right? So we are getting Mazda, right? So this was it, guys. Thank you, guys. If you like the video, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video with as many people as you can. Thank you, guys. Bye. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep watching my videos. Then